This is Justin here to make you another video to show you some of the stuff I've been with the bender here. When you guys receive it, this is what it'll look like. They are painted black, flat black, before I ship them out. When you get it, you'll have the nut and the collar on the bender, so just pull your nut off of the bender and pull your collar off. Once you get the nut off, pull your collar off, take your handle, set it down on the bender. If you're just going to do a few 3/16 rod or just a couple 1/4 inch bends, go ahead and leave the collar on. If you're going to bend 5/16 or you're going to sit and bend a bunch of 1/4 inch base plates or a bunch of H-stands, go ahead and take the collar off and you can leave it off. It really don't affect the bender at all. Here is a few things that I do with them. The Sterling style swivel. Right here, when you make it, besides of welding the nut on and putting your J-hook in there, take and leave it open and slide that down over there onto your base plate rod of your trap. Then take your nut and weld it in there before you take and weld it in there like that. Then once you're done, slide your J-hook through and it gives you a whole nother swiveling point on your trap. That's one thing I do with them. It's a Sterling style swivel, but I make them like that and it gives me an extra swiveling point on the trap. On how I do it, you can either use 1/4 inch rod or the 60D common nails, measured if you want. That's all on personal. This one here I measured. It's a 6-inch nail, so I measured out to 3 inches. Stick it in the bender, right at your line, right on the post. Let it tighten up. Then just take it to make a Sterling style swivel. You're just going to take that and you're going to bend it all the way around. If you get a little too tight, you'll have to grab a pair of pliers and pull it back out. Then you can take and cut the rest of your nail off, or the rest of your rod if you didn't get it quite even. Just go ahead and take and cut it off. Then you can take and stick your nut in there and weld it up. I mean, guys, once you get this and start playing around with it, you'll be amazed on all the different stuff you can make. Base plate rod. A rod base plate. This is a 60D nail. I marked it at 3 inches. So I'm going to make a base plate here. Now guys, it's all up to you on how much bend you put into it. If you want to have it just enough for it to move around, or if you want a real deep slope to it, that's up to you. On my beaver traps, my number 3s, I like to put a real deep bend in them. Like this here, it got some nice deep bend in it. I like that deep bend because when I'm bedding it in the soft dirt, it gives it a good anchor point. Like this one here, it ain't quite as deep. That was a little deeper and that was real deep. It's all on what your preference is on how you want it on your trap. So, to bend a base plate rod, I marked this one again at 3 inches. I put it in there right on the line, and I'm going to bend it. I'm going to say about 75 degrees, depending on how deep of a bend you want and how much slope you want. Then you just take and where your bend is, flip it over up against your post, bend it, and pull it out, flip it over, and give it a bend. Now, if it ain't perfectly straight, don't worry about that. Take and just lay it right back down in your bender, and take and give it a little bend. Straightens right back out, cut your head off, and it's ready to go on your trap. Okay guys, I've had some question about making trap stands, H stands and stuff. As I get all the measurements figured up for 160s, 220s and 330s, 110s, as I get all the measurements figured up, I'll be more than happy to share all that with you guys. This here, I cut these 1/4 inch rods. These right here, I cut them at 16 inches. And I'm going to do about 1.25 inch bend to come up. Then I'm going to do another 1.25 inch bend for the trap to rest on. So to start out, I'm going to stick it in there for my first 1.25 inch bend. I'm going to let it pull tight. Then I'm going to bend it around. Just like that there. Then, to put my other bend in it, I'm going to take and flip it over like that. And go ahead and bend it right on around. Just like that. So right here, all you got to do is take and set your trap up, measure your outside width or your inside. This here, if you leave them in this position, that would go inside of a 160 or a 220, whichever one you prefer. Take and set your rods up there and get your measurement. This out there is a 220, and your rod's going to be around 8.5 inches. So cut your rod 8.5 inches and weld that in there. Just don't forget when you go, before you start welding them in, take and get a measurement from your bend right here, from this bend here, measure down to where the bottom of your trap line is, to where your trap starts and ends. So you make sure you don't get too far up inside the trap with your support rods. If you want to take and build it so the stabilizer holds on the outside of the springs, I like this way better because it takes less rod to go for the inside to inside. So that there, I'm going to measure that. You can get away with 6 inches on that one. So I'm going to take and pull that apart like that there. Then I'm going to take and lay that like this. I'm going to measure this right here, guys, to 6 inches. Right like that. If you want, you know, if you got something on, you got a bench where you could take and nail it down, put you a couple nails so it don't move, or if you got a metal bench, make you a little jig. Measure it out so it's 6 inches down low on the inside, 6 inches up at the top, and just take and weld your rod in. On this one here, on a 220, you're going to go right at about 4.5 inches down. Go right at about 4.5 inches down and weld your crossbar in. Guys, here after a bit, once I take and get these welded all up, I'll take and repost another video. But that's how you'd make a stand for a 160 or a 220. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys bending this one again. Take and stick it in there. On this here, I'm going to go on my second line. So I'm going to stick it in there with my line right on my 1/2 inch post here. And I'm going to still bend that around to complete 90. Just like that. Okay? Then I'm going to take this rod, flip it over, stick where my 90-degree bends right up against the post. Then I'm going to bend that right around. Just like that. Alright. Then we'll take and you do your next one just like that. So, say you want to take and make one for a 1. You want to make one for a 110, a tall one for a 110. You take and however much you want to stick in the ground. I went a foot on this one. Then I measured another 1 inch for my bend to where I want to start at. Then another inch. So I got 3 marks here. 12, 13, and 14. I'm going to start out on my middle line. And I'm going to take and bend this until all the way out to a point. Just like that. To right around 90, a little past 90. Then I'm going to take and stick it right here in the bender. Put my put the bend right up against the post. Sorry guys, I got some traps here in the way. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to bend that right around. It takes a little playing around, a little getting used to, but once you get used to it, you guys will love it. It's simple, it's easy, and it saves from having to pay someone else to take and make all your stuff. So, right there I got my V in there how I want it. So then I'm going to take it like this. You can do either side and just bend that right on around. Then there's your notch for your 110 to set on this side. On your other piece, how I've got it measured is the 6 inches out. But I'm going to start out by this piece on my second mark. I got marked. I'm going to bend it around. Then I'm going to come over here and do another bend. Straight up. Okay? So that's going to be the outside post. Okay, so now we need it to take and curve to go in. You need it to be about 2 inches or so, depending on what type of 1.5 you got. So slide that in there with your V, with your knot, your bend, just like this. Slide that in there and pull that around. Okay? And take and measure that. Most of them are going to be around 5.5 inches, 5 inches. Take and bend it, just like that. And you just take and weld it to your tall piece, and that'll give you a 110 stand. I've had some guys ask on the 330 stands. So here's how I make my 330 stand. This here, guys, is 5/16 galvanized rod for fences. You can pick it up at most of your Lowe's, Menards, and stuff like that, home improvement stores. Just stick it in there. I measured this one to go in 12 inches.